story of rebirth, revenge, and redemption. Ethan Knight wakes up in a reality where he's a weak, humiliated husband to his powerful CEO wife, Ariana White. But one bold act, a slap, changes everything. Determined to reclaim his pride and destiny, Ethan rises from humiliation to power, building his own empire, while his ex-wife's world begins to crumble. Yet as success and revenge blur together, both discover that love and forgiveness are stronger than pride and power. It's a tale of transformation, from weakness to strength, from hate to healing, from a fallen man to a rewritten. Ethan's eyes snapped open. A sharp pain throbbed in his head, and the world around him shimmered. The scent of expensive perfume, the chill of marble floors, and the soft hum of a penthouse morning. For a moment he thought it was a dream, but when he looked around he froze. He was in her bedroom, the same luxurious suite that once made him feel small, where he had lived as a trophy husband, the man everyone laughed at. His wife, Ariana White, CEO of White Tech Industries, the youngest billionaire in the city, and the woman who controlled his life like a puppet. He remembered everything, how she ignored him, how she laughed when others mocked his failures, how he begged for her love and got only pity in return. But this time, something was different. His heart wasn't weak anymore. His spine wasn't bending under her shadow. His soul felt like it had burned once and been reborn in fire. The sound of heels echoed across the floor. Ariana appeared in a crisp white suit, her cold beauty slicing through the air like glass. She didn't even glance at him as she said, "Ethan, make yourself useful. My coffee's cold." That tone, that arrogance, the same tone that had broken the old him. But this time Ethan didn't move. He just stared and calm, silent and unshaken. Ariana frowned. "Did you not hear me?" Ethan stood up slowly. His voice came out low and steady. "I heard you, but I'm not your servant anymore." She blinked, stunned. "What did you just say?" He took one step forward. His gaze locked on hers, and before she could speak again, his hand rose. Smack. The sound cracked through the penthouse like thunder. Ariana's eyes went wide. Her hand touched her cheek in disbelief. Ethan's voice cut through the silence, calm, cold, and new. "That's for every time you treated me like I was nothing. Starting today, I'm not the same man you married." The shock in her eyes slowly turned into something else, fury, confusion, and a flicker of fear. Ethan walked past her toward the window, sunlight hitting his face. "You built an empire, Ariana, but now I'll build one that will stand above yours." And for the first time, the woman who once ruled him had no words, because she could see it in his eyes. The fire of a man who had woken up to rewrite his fate. The city skyline stretched beyond the glass walls. Golden under the morning sun, a kingdom Ethan once thought belonged only to his wife. Now it felt like a challenge. He stood at the window long after Ariana stormed out. The echo of the slap still lingered in the air, but what echoed louder was his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. He checked his reflection in the glass. The man staring back wasn't the broken one from yesterday. His eyes were sharp, his jaw tight with determination. Then something caught his eye. A reflection on the nightstand. A phone, her phone. Ethan hesitated before picking it up. Dozens of messages flashed across the screen. "Morning, beautiful. Dinner tonight? Can't wait to see you again, by Marcus." Marcus, the name hit him like a blade. Ariana's business partner, the man who'd been laughing at him, behind his back for months. Ethan smiled faintly, not in sadness but in clarity. So that's how it was. He placed the phone back and walked toward the mirror again. "You wanted a weak husband, Ariana. You created one, but you forgot. Even the softest man can turn sharp when his pride is broken." Hours later, Ethan walked into White Tech, headquarters, the same building, where every employee knew him as the CEO's decoration. Whispers followed him. "Isn't that her husband? He doesn't even have a job here. He's just living off her money." Ethan ignored them all and stepped into the elevator, pressing the top floor. The guard tried to stop him. "Sir, you can't." Ethan turned his gaze on him, calm, cold. "Tell your boss her husband came to return what never belonged to him." Inside Ariana's office, Marcus was already there, leaning casually on her desk, grinning. Ariana sat behind her chair, a glass of wine in her hand, composed, pretending the morning never happened. "Ethan," she said smoothly, "you've had your little outburst. Now go back to your place. Don't embarrass yourself further." Marcus chuckled. The poor guy still thinks he's relevant. Ethan didn't flinch. He just stepped forward, his voice echoing through the glass room. "You're right, Ariana. I was irrelevant, but not anymore. He dropped a document on her desk. She frowned. What's this? The transfer papers. I've sold my shares in White Tech. Her eyes widened. You don't have any shares. He smiled. That's what you think. Remember the early funding phase? I invested in your dream when no one else believed in you. Check the signature. Ariana snatched the document, and her eyes froze on the name at the bottom. Ethan Knight, co-founder. No, that's impossible. Ethan turned toward the door, his coat brushing past Marcus. It's very possible. And now I'm going to build something new. Something you'll wish you never tried to destroy. Marcus muttered, You don't have what it takes. Ethan looked back once, a faint smirk on his lips. Then watch me. And with that, he walked out. The man who once kneeled now walking tall. Behind him, Ariana's voice trembled for the first time. What has gotten into him? Marcus leaned closer to her, uneasy. He's not the same Ethan anymore. The rain fell hard that night, slicing through the city lights like silver blades. Ethan stood beneath the glowing sign of an old warehouse. Broken, abandoned, forgotten. Much like how he had once been, now it was where he would begin again. He pushed open the rusted doors. Dust filled the air, and faint moonlight spilled across cracked floors. But Ethan could already see it. Rows of desks, bright screens, engineers at work, the hum of innovation. White Tech took my ideas, he whispered. This time I'll take back my legacy. He opened a worn notebook, his old research. Sketches and plans Ariana had once dismissed. Too risky, she had said. Too ambitious. Now those same ideas would be his new foundation, his new company, Nightcore Innovations. 3 days later, Ethan sat in a small cafe, laptop open, emails pouring in. He had no money, no investors, no connections. Only a plan, and the anger that had forged him into something unstoppable. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the clatter. You look like a man on a mission. He looked up. A woman in a leather jacket stood before him, confident eyes, warm smile. Lena Cross, his college friend, the one who had always believed in him when no one else did. Lena, he said softly, you're still in the city? Barely. Left my last job. Heard about your CEO wife situation. The internet's having fun with it. Ethan's lips twitched. Let them laugh. They'll stop soon enough. She leaned over, glancing at his screen. Nightcore? What's this? My new company, he said. I'm going to build something better than White Tech. Cleaner AI systems. Real user privacy. The kind of tech Ariana refused to make. Lena's brow lifted. And how much funding do you have? 0. She grinned. Then it's perfect. I'm in. Weeks turned into months. The warehouse transformed. Desks, cables, glowing lights. The hum of machines filled the air. Ethan worked day and night, coding, designing, negotiating with suppliers. Lena handled marketing and tech development, building a small team that believed in Ethan's vision. Every news channel still called him the ex-husband who snapped. Every article mocked him for trying to challenge Ariana White. But one morning, Ethan opened a business magazine and froze. Across the cover was a new headline. Nightcore's prototype outsmarts White Tech's flagship AI. The underdog had just shaken the empire. At White Tech headquarters, Ariana slammed the magazine onto her desk. Who leaked this? Marcus frowned. It's not a leak. It's a launch. Nightcore went public last night. Ariana's eyes burned. He's declaring war. Marcus chuckled uneasily. Maybe he's just bluffing. But Ariana knew better. The man who had once begged for her attention now moved like a storm. Unpredictable, unstoppable, and dangerously focused. No, she said softly, gripping the paper. He's coming for everything I built. Back in his warehouse, Ethan watched the sunrise through cracked glass. Nightcore's servers hummed softly behind him, glowing like embers. You took my heart, Ariana, he whispered, but you'll never take my future. And with that, the man once called a simp became a rising name in the tech world. The fallen husband who dared to build an empire from ashes. Ariana White's world was built on control. Control of her company, her image, and every person who dared to cross her path. But for the first time in years, she felt it slipping. She sat alone in her penthouse office. The same view she once admired now mocking her. Emails flooded in. White Tech stock down by 8%. Investors concerned about Nightcore's rise. CEO Ethan Knight introduces AI security framework that outperforms White Tech systems. Each headline was a knife. Each word whispered the same message. He's winning. Ariana slammed her tablet shut and leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding. How? She muttered. He was nothing. He was no one. But deep down she knew. Ethan wasn't that man anymore. The slap that had once humiliated her had awakened something terrifying. At the same time, across the city, Nightcore's new office buzzed with energy. The old warehouse had evolved into a modern workspace filled with energy, light, and ambition. Ethan stood before a wall-sized screen showing stock graphs and user metrics. Lena walked up beside him. Nightcore just hit 100 million users. Ethan didn't smile. He just nodded. Good. We're only getting started. Lena looked at him carefully. You've changed, Ethan. You used to talk about building for people. Now it feels like you're building against her. He paused for a moment, staring at the city skyline. You can't rewrite your fate without breaking the ones who tried to write it for you. Lena sighed softly, realizing there was no reasoning with him. Not yet. Meanwhile, at White Tech headquarters, Marcus burst into Ariana's office. We have a problem. Nightcore just secured a government cybersecurity contract. That was our deal. Ariana's jaw tightened. Find out who's backing him. No one grows that fast without help. Marcus hesitated. You sure you want to know? Tell me. He handed her a file. Ariana flipped through it, then froze. At the bottom, stamped in blue ink, was the name of the investor. Lena Cross, co-founder, Nightcore Innovations. Ariana's fingers tightened on the page. So she's the one helping him. Her lips curled slightly, cold and venomous. Fine. If he wants to play war, I'll remind him who taught him the game. That evening, Ethan received a message. A private dinner invitation from Ariana. Lena looked uneasy. Don't go. It's a trap. Ethan smiled faintly. Good, I love traps. They remind me I'm still dangerous. He arrived at a luxury rooftop restaurant, where Ariana sat waiting. Her usual icy composure cracked just slightly by nervous energy. He took his seat, calm and confident. You've changed, she said quietly. You finally noticed. She met his eyes. You're hurting yourself just to hurt me. You think building an empire on revenge will bring you peace? He leaned forward, his tone low but steady. Peace was never my goal. Freedom was. She looked away, a rare flicker of pain crossing her face. You're not the man I married. No, he said. You killed that man. The silence between them was heavy, thick with all the things they'd never said. When Ethan stood to leave, Ariana whispered, You'll regret turning me into your enemy. He looked back at her, eyes hard as steel. No, Ariana. You'll regret ever thinking I was weak. He walked away, leaving her sitting in the glow of city lights. A queen who'd finally realized the king she'd lost. The war had begun, not with bullets but with headlines, leaked codes, and silent sabotage. Ariana White was done playing defense. Within a week of that tense dinner, she unleashed her first move, quietly, ruthlessly, and with the precision of a woman who'd once built empires from nothing. At Nightcore headquarters, chaos erupted. Lena slammed a folder onto Ethan's desk. Half our servers just went down. Someone leaked our internal encryption keys. Ethan's eyes narrowed. White Tech. She nodded grimly. They're using your old frameworks against us, ones you designed years ago. Ethan clenched his fists. The irony burned. The same tools he had once built for Ariana were now being used to destroy him. Then I'll do what I should have done back then, he said coldly. Burn every bridge that ties me to her. He called his engineers, developers, and investors into an emergency meeting. We rebuild from zero. No old code, no dependencies, nothing she can trace. Nightcore doesn't just need better tech. It needs a soul that can't be copied. His voice echoed across the room, and for a moment, everyone felt it. The fire of a man reborn. Meanwhile, in her glass tower, Ariana watched every move with cold satisfaction. Marcus stood beside her, grinning. You hit him where it hurts. His pride. Ariana smirked faintly. He wanted to fight me in my own arena. Let's see if he can survive my rules. But deep down, she wasn't calm. Every time she saw his name in the news, every time she saw that fire in his eyes, it did something to her she couldn't explain. That night, as she sat alone in her office, she opened her old photo album, one she'd sworn she'd deleted. There they were, Ethan and her, smiling, messy, in love. Back when he still brought her coffee at dawn, not contempt. A soft sigh escaped her lips. Why did you make me hate you to remember I once loved you? But the regret was swallowed by the same pride that had built her empire. At Nightcore, Ethan worked through the night. Lena found him hours later, still coding, his face lit only by the glow of his screen. You haven't slept in 2 days, she said gently. Neither has she, he replied without looking up. Lena hesitated, then asked, Ethan, do you still love her? He froze. The air between them stilled. Finally, he said quietly, I don't know. Maybe I just love what I could have been if she hadn't crushed me. Days later, a new wave hit. Whitetech's main server was hacked. Millions lost. Confidential data leaked. Ariana barged into her cybersecurity department, furious. Who did this? Her head of security looked pale. We traced it back to an anonymous source. But the code signature, it's Nightcore's. Ariana's lips parted. Ethan. Across town, Ethan stood in his office, staring at the same news report. Nightcore's system hadn't attacked anyone, but someone had used their code. A setup. She's trying to destroy me publicly, Ethan muttered. Lena frowned. Then fight back. Expose her. He shook his head. No, this isn't about destroying her anymore. It's about ending the story she wrote for me. As the city buzzed with rumors, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was love twisted into war, ambition turned to obsession, and somewhere beneath it all, two broken hearts still beat for each other, just on opposite sides of the battlefield. The empire that once stood unshakable was beginning to tremble. Whitetech's stock prices plummeted overnight. Board members argued in closed meetings. Investors withdrew quietly, and the media that once worshipped Ariana now tore her name apart. Whitetech faces cybersecurity crisis. CEO under fire. Anonymous source claims CEO used leaked code from rival Nightcore. Ariana White, falling star of the tech world? Every headline chipped away at the steel wall she had built around her reputation. Ariana stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, eyes hollow. The city lights glittered below her like 1,000 silent witnesses. Marcus entered nervous. Ariana, the board's losing patience. They want you to resign until the investigation clears. She turned slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. They think I'm guilty. Marcus hesitated. Are you? Her eyes flashed. I don't steal, Marcus. I win, there's a difference. But she knew the truth. This time she was losing. Across the city, Nightcore thrived. Their new AI system, Project Dawn, was trending globally, a symbol of hope and innovation. Investors flooded in, and Ethan's name became synonymous with revolution. He should have felt triumphant, victorious, but he didn't. Standing at his office balcony, watching the same skyline that once belonged to her, he felt nothing, only silence. Lena approached him holding her tablet. You did it. You took everything back. Ethan's gaze stayed on the horizon. Did I? You built an empire. You won. He shook his head slowly. Winning against someone you once loved doesn't feel like victory. It feels like ash. Lena's expression softened. Then maybe it's time to forgive her. He looked down, eyes dark. Forgive her? Or forget her? The next day, Ariana's world crashed completely. Whitetech's board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove her as CEO. She walked out of the building she had built from scratch. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. But she said nothing. Not a word. Her car door shut, silencing the chaos. She stared at her reflection in the tinted glass. Mascara smudged. Eyes red, heart heavy. For the first time in years, Ariana White looked human. That night, she drove to the edge of the city, to the same old warehouse where it all began. She stepped out, the wind tugging at her hair, and saw the glowing logo, Nightcore Innovations. Inside, Ethan stood alone, reviewing data. When the door opened, he looked up. And there she was, the woman who once ruled his world, now standing in silence before him. Ariana, he said quietly. She didn't speak for a moment. Her voice trembled when she finally did. You won, Ethan. You took everything. My company, my name, my pride. He took a slow breath. No, Ariana. You lost them long before I came back. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled. Soft, broken. I built walls around me so high that I couldn't see you anymore. And now I'm standing in the ruins. Ethan said nothing. She stepped closer, voice shaking. If I asked for forgiveness, would you give it? He looked at her, not with hate, but with something deeper. Forgiveness isn't something you ask for, Ariana. It's something you earn. She nodded slowly, understanding. Then maybe I'll spend the rest of my life earning it. She turned to leave, her heels echoing against the floor, fading into the night. And for the first time, Ethan didn't feel rage. He felt peace. 6 months later, the city that once whispered about Ethan and Ariana now spoke their names with awe. Nightcore had become a global force. redefining AI ethics and innovation. Ethan Knight, once mocked as a simp husband, was now one of the most respected visionaries in the tech world. But success couldn't silence everything. Late at night, when the city lights dimmed, a single memory still echoed in his heart. Her, Ariana White. Since that night at Nightcore, she had disappeared from the public eye. No headlines, no scandals, just silence. One evening, Ethan was invited to a global tech summit in Singapore. As he entered the glass auditorium, a familiar voice began the opening keynote. He froze. "Innovation isn't about domination," the voice said. "It's about redemption." He turned. There she was, Ariana. Simpler now. No designer suits, no entourage. Just grace and quiet strength. Their eyes met across the crowd. For a moment, time stopped. After the speech, she approached him backstage. "Didn't think we'd meet again like this," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "You always did love a dramatic entrance." She laughed, the first genuine sound he'd heard from her in years. "I've been working with non-profit tech foundations," she said, "trying to make up for what I ruined." Ethan nodded. "That's a start." Ariana looked at him, her eyes glimmering with a mix of pride and pain. "I never thanked you." "For what?" "For waking me up. For slapping sense into me, literally and figuratively." He chuckled quietly, shaking his head. "That wasn't my best moment." She smiled. Maybe it was fate's way of rewriting both our stories. Later that night, they walked through the quiet streets along the bay. The world around them had changed, but somehow they had too. Softer, wiser. Ariana stopped, turning to face him. "You could have destroyed me completely, Ethan. Why didn't you?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Because I wasn't fighting you, Ariana. I was fighting the version of myself you once made me become." She lowered her gaze, tears in her eyes. "And what do you see now?" He stepped closer, voice low. "A woman who learned the cost of power, and a man who learned the strength of letting go." They stood in silence, two souls scarred by pride, healed by time. A gentle breeze brushed between them, carrying away the last traces of hatred. Ariana took a deep breath. "Maybe, this time we can build something new, not out of control or pride, but out of respect." Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not as CEO and husband. Just Ethan and Ariana." She nodded, tears glistening under the city lights. "Ethan and Ariana," she repeated softly as if testing the sound of peace. Months later, two companies stood side by side, Nightcore and White Foundation, working together for global digital ethics and human-centered AI. Ethan often saw her across boardroom tables, confident, calm, and no longer hiding behind power. And sometimes their eyes would meet, not in anger, not in rivalry, but in silent understanding. They hadn't rewritten the past, but they had rewritten their fate.